Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Jim K. Ford Sens Nation podcast. And there are a lot of smiles around the city of Ottawa of late. The Sens are looking very much like we said in the last episode. We weren't going to say have turned a corner, but so I won't use it. I'll stick to the guns. We won't bring out that. What was the moratorium we put on not sticking you guys to turning a corner? We say January. What was it?
What, you mean when we were going to use it again?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't put any time limit on. I just said enough of that. Look, Steve, they've progressed down the road. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. That's they've progressed down the road, ladies and gentlemen. The Sens have won five straight wins now. They've won 7 of their last 8, giving up 7 goals in the process. Ay caramba. Linus Ullmark is playing out of his mind. And, they got a busy weekend. They still have 7 games to go on this road trip. That's going to have a holiday after the next couple of games. But, got a back-to-back right away. But everything is looking very good for the Ottawa Senators at the moment. Things could change. You could be listening to this 3-4 days after we record this, and it could all change. And it has in the past. But anyway, welcome to the show. It is the Jim K. Ford Sens Nation podcast. My name is Steve Warren. That's Greg Kennedy, the coach. Greg, how are things?
Very good, Stephen. Very good. It's
excellent.
I stayed up. I watched 2 nights there, watched both late games till the end, and was very, very impressed. I was joking with you before we started this that, I was kind of half expecting sometime halfway through the second period that I would just kind of turn it off and go to bed because they'd be behind by something. But 2 really solid 60 minute plus in the case of Calgary, but 2 solid full game efforts and 4 points. I mean, that's awesome. They're looking really good right now. Tough weekend, as you just alluded to, though. Vancouver, Edmonton, back-to-back nights, a little bit of travel in between, obviously. It'll be interesting to see who plays in net for those 2 games, but I'm looking forward to seeing them continue this streak of really good play.
Maybe no shortage of fans who still want Ullmark in both games.
Oh yeah,
but I gotta think at some stage you have to go to your backup. In this case, it's Levi Merilainen, so it's extenuating circumstances to some point. You know, the Islanders had that issue with Ilya Sorokin. They had Semyon Varlamov, who was on the sideline, and they called up former Senator Marcus Hogberg. So he hadn't started an NHL game in 2-3 years. So they went back-to-back there. That was pretty much a slam dunk. It's kind of the same situation, but Merilainen has gotten into a game before, but it's been a while. And I just feel like, you're giving Ullmark a night off, potentially between either Vancouver or Edmonton, but you're putting the kid in a bad place at the same time, and it's not exactly putting your best foot forward. But I feel like at some stage you got to go to your backup, don't you?
Well, I'm thinking throw the stats out the window. I don't care what the stats say about goalies starting back-to-back or 4 and 5 or whatever it is. I don't care. All I care about is how Linus Ullmark feels. And if Linus Ullmark says, yeah, you know what, I can play them both, then I'm giving them both. Obviously, he would make the decision after Vancouver. I think Vancouver's a no-brainer. I think that if they start Merilainen now, no. You start Ullmark for Vancouver on Saturday night, and then you talk to him after the game and say, how do you feel before the Edmonton game? And you make a decision from there. That would be my take on it if I were the coach.
I don't think Merilainen played last year. I think he got into a game the year before. For sure you can count on one hand the number of NHL starts he's had. He's had some, but at least one. But imagine telling him, okay, your first start's going to be against Connor McDavid on the road. Not ideal. I wouldn't think that there'd be a lot of bettors going, yes, give me the Sens in that game. So it will be interesting to see how it exactly plays out. But you really can't muck around too much because this team's on a roll. It's flying. It's got a big winning streak going, 7 of 8. And they've been in that second wild card for a while because everybody in front of them seems to be winning. They are making a little separation between the teams beneath them and themselves, which is a good thing. Gives you a little room for error as we move on here. But it just shows you that it's not going to be easy to continue to make up ground unless you keep rolling the way you currently are.
Yeah, like how about Pittsburgh? They're in a serious roll. Haven't they won like 7 of 8 or something, or 8 of 10? Or Pittsburgh's on a roll right behind you. The problem is there's so many teams together within a few points of each other when this road trip started, that is, that winning 3 out of 4, and then one of the other teams is going to win 3 out of 4 as well. Or one of the other teams is going to win 4 out of 5 or 5 in a row. So the Senators are the team that have won the 5 in a row, but the Penguins are still hot. Somebody else gets hot. You kind of got to maintain it. Like, there is no time to take the foot off the gas. You've got to keep playing hard and winning every night. Maybe when you're 5 or 6 points up, you can have a stinker, but they cannot afford to take any regression here. They cannot afford a step backward now. And that doesn't necessarily mean that I expect them to win both games. I'd be quite pleased if they got 2 points out of these next 2 games, 2 points total, that is. But it's the performance that matters, how they play, how they lose if they lose one of them. That's what matters here, is the performance on the ice and how they're playing the game. And if they're sticking to the details, then we're okay. But if they lose badly, then it's a whole other story. If they win both, woohoo! Nice big gap now, and keep rolling.
Yeah. And when I say they've got a little more breathing room on the teams behind them, I mean, they're still only I think it is Pittsburgh that's only a point back of them. Sens do have a couple of games in hand. And even the teams I'm talking about, like the Rangers or the Islanders, they're 3 points back of the Sens. That's not exactly, breathing comfortably, but it is a little more breathing room. You cannot afford to, you can get away with maybe, going 500 the rest of the way. But if you're sub 500 coming out of this long road trip, you're not going to be in a playoff spot. So that's just how tight it is in the Eastern Conference. Right now, they're 2 points back of Boston, the number 1 wild card, and a couple of games in hand on the Bruins. So, yeah, I mean, the nice thing is that you control your own destiny now. You're not in that situation where you got to jump over 6 teams and hope that a bunch of other things happen. At least if you take care of your own business, they're back in a position where they'll be just fine. So that's a little better headspace to be in, rather than feeling like a million things have to happen along with you playing well.
Right. Like, Boston's been in a funk, kind of up and down since the coaching change. They didn't really get that new coach bump that you might have expected. So Tampa's up there now. I mean, Boston and Tampa flip-flopped between third in the division and that number 1 wild card. But it would be really nice to get into that spot, right? To get into third in the division would be really sweet. And then you got Boston chasing you, or maybe Tampa chasing you. That would be a nice spot to be in, and something that we haven't witnessed in this town in a long time, to be in an actual playoff spot down the stretch. That'd be pretty cool.
Brady Tkachuk continues to be Captain Clutch. By his own admission, he didn't feel like he had a great game. Took a stick in the mouth. It was an accidental one. It was one of those deals where the player's trying to lift his stick and misses, and then whammo, right in the face. 9 stitches, a lost tooth, but he wasn't gone particularly long. He returned to the game and ended up scoring your game-winning goal in overtime. It's hard to believe this guy, what is he? Is he 25 and he has like 10 overtime goals in his career already? That is crazy.
It is 10. He's past his dad. He's ahead of his brother. Kenzie asked him post-game how he felt about that passing dad, and his immediate response was, well, he scored a few more regular goals than I got right now. I don't think it's any point in time for me to be chirping the old man who scored a heck of a lot of goals in his NHL career.
Like, Linus Ullmark's already not playing great, 7 wins in a row, and he's the 5th guy in Sens history to hit 7 straight wins. I might go at you for the other 4 at some point in the broadcast here. But yeah, I mean, that's it's not enough that he's doing that. And like I say, I think in those 7 wins, he's only given up 7 goals. But now he's going out and setting up overtime game-winning goals. So after a great save on Huberdeau, with maybe some shenanigans involved in it on a Calgary 2-on-1 in overtime, Ullmark picks up the puck and rifles it up to Tim Stützle for an Ottawa 2-on-1 in the overtime. Stützle gets stopped by Vladar on, is it Vladar or Vladar? Vladar. Makes the save, but there's Brady Tkachuk, as always, going to the net and deflects it in, and the Sens win. So Ullmark ends up with an assist. We were talking at Tim Hortons earlier today about the Flames complaining a little bit on the winning goal.
Yeah, a double complaint. I think they were when it first went in, they were complaining that it was a high stick or directed in. I don't, I don't know that I ever saw a clear-cut replay of Brady's foot turning or not turning or lifting or not lifting. It hit his foot, similar to the Huberdeau goal. And then he may or may not have caught it with his stick too before it went across the goal line. But there was complaints from Huberdeau that he got high sticked in a yap on his breakaway earlier in the play. And I didn't see it. I slowed it down and looked at it over and over again. I couldn't figure out where. Maybe it rubbed across his shoulder, but it sure didn't look like he got a stick in the face. And there was no blood. I was reading quotes and seeing dressing room scrums where guys were talking about, he draws blood. We got 4 minutes for that earlier in the game. Well, I didn't see any blood. Like, holy smokes, man. It wasn't. It may have rubbed off his shoulder, but who cares, right? Mm-hmm. Who cares? The obvious one was the one on Brady, and man, did he look ugly after the game.
Yeah, for sure. I was surprised. I mean, I guess they had to call it because, as it turned out, there was some blood on the ice to be cleaned up. But initially, he got off the ice so fast, I was wondering, don't leave until they see the blood. But it ended up being they didn't do much with that power play. Didn't do anything with it. But
that was terrible.
They ended up with the double minor there, and but. Brady Tkachuk spoke after the game. You mentioned the conversation that he had on TSN Live with Kenzie Lalonde, but he also did the normal media scrum, and courtesy of the Ottawa Senators YouTube channel, here is Brady Tkachuk and what he had to say after the game. Viewer discretion is advised.
I mean, I wasn't really good during the game anyways. So, it was a great save by Ollie. And I guess I won't even say good things come around, but it's just everything happens up in the net. So you just got to stop in the net.
It wasn't pretty, but it was an effort that your group, another example, just kind of finding ways to win. You see it that way?
Yeah. No, I mean, we're riding a good high right now, and obviously wasn't our best game. Now we know we need to be a lot better, but I think it just says to the maturity and the lessons that we've learned and the adversity that we face that we can handle anything and just find a way to grease out a win.
So there's Brady Tkachuk in conversation with the media. I think it's Brady Tkachuk. He resembles him still a little bit. Man, that is a messed up looking mouth. Again, 8 stitches and a broken tooth. I've never been a big fan. Patrick Kane seemed to start the trend of guys chewing on their mouth guard like it's a dog's chew toy. Mm-hmm. And probably the game plan moving forward is to do less chewing and more wearing of the safety device. Tkachuk even referenced it too. Yeah, maybe that's a lesson for the kids out there. Maybe where
if Patrick Kane was the number 1 offender, Matthew Tkachuk is probably number 2. He's a big dangling mouthguard guy too. Jake Sanderson's pretty bad at it too. I don't get it. Like, either get rid of the thing altogether or wear it properly, right?
Yeah. I don't like gum chewing. I don't like it. But again, old man shaking a fist at cloud. Who cares in the big picture of things? Just go out there and do what you're doing, because Brady Tkachuk is having another fine season. And I don't know, maybe when you think about the psyche of the Ottawa Senators and the discussion about Brady Tkachuk, how he always seems to drag the team into the fight, I wonder if it's because we talked about it in the training camp. It did seem like Brady Tkachuk reported as a more serious individual. I don't want to say man. He's always been a man as he's been in the NHL, but just playing more of a man's game and having a man's mentality to things. And maybe that comes a little bit from watching his brother celebrate a Stanley Cup just a few months back this year.
It's age. It's maturity. It's a couple of years playing with Claude Giroux. Different players in the room have had effects on him, other leaders that have been around him. But I think, to me, the main thing is it's just maturity. He's been in the league. He's been around the league. He's now, dare I say it, he's a veteran. He's an older guy, and he's not quite so emotional. He's not quite so nervous. He speaks clearly, succinctly. He gives thought to his answers. He is a different person. And mainly because, to me, he's a different leader. He's got different goal set. I think the coaching change helped a lot. I think spending time under Jacques Martin probably helped a lot. He's a different man, and he has been for a while now.
I think you figure out what matters.
Yeah.
What doesn't matter, and what's to be dismissed and what's to be really stressed as your leadership goes. And I mean, that's just another Another page in the book of Brady Tkachuk, what we saw in Calgary. Up on the housetop. Oh, hey. It's Steve here for Celebrate. I'm just putting on my old school Christmas lights with these obnoxious little plastic clips in minus 30-degree temperature at the top of this ladder 12 feet off the ground. No, I'm not doing any of that anymore. No, sir. Celebrate.ca. I urge you to check them out today. Celebrate is your permanent holiday lighting solution. So many options. St. Paddy's Day green, Team Canada red and white, orange for Halloween, and the beautiful colors of Christmas. And Celebrate is all controlled from your smartphone. And Celebrate's installers were absolutely fantastic and professional. I urge you to check them out today. Celebrate.ca. It's a wobbly ladder. And on the other side of the coin, Ridley Gregg had not scored in a long time. He got a goal in Calgary, and that's a big one for him. When you think about where this team is at right now, if I told you they'd be in a playoff spot right now and Shane Pinto around the same time would be going through a 19-game goalless drought, which he finally got off the schneid with that a week ago today, and Ridley Gregg would be on a 19-game goalless drought, which he ended last night in Calgary, would you say it was possible that the Senators would be in a playoff spot?
Yeah, no. Like, honestly, we knew that three lines of attack, three-line offense was required here. And I really think that if you go back, a lot of this success of the last little while coincides with the day that Travis Green moved Cousins up to play with Nick Cousins, up to play with Pinto. And that's made all the difference in the world. Like, the third line has been effective ever since. But surprisingly, a week or so later, Zach Ostapchuk shows up and he's really solidified the fourth line. I thought the third and fourth line in the last two games have been very, very good, considering the youth or the reduced minutes that they've played up to this point in the season. Third and fourth line have looked real good lately, and that has had a lot to do with the success. Well, that and Linus Ullmark and better defensive play, but the offense that you're now getting, and not just the offense, but time in the offensive zone. Like, less time in the D zone, more time in the O zone, more time attacking, more time on the forecheck that those third and fourth lines are giving you has made a big difference in the way things have moved so far here. Nick
Cousins did get a goal in the game as well, his fourth of the year. And that was an interesting one. Jason York, former Ottawa Senator, he kind of broke it down on social media today. And that was well said by him, because even though Zach Ostapchuk does not appear on the score sheet on Nick Cousins' goal, he was the guy that initiated everything. He had the forecheck, forced Rasmus Andersson to dump the puck away really quickly, and that created a turnover. It came back to Ostapchuk. He made a slick pass and then got off the ice at the absolute perfect time, allowing for Shane Pinto to re-enter the fray as they were kind of cycling things around, and it eventually got to Cousins, and he scored. And Yorkie made a great point about Ostapchuk and the work he does there, and how so often stats just don't give you that information. No matter what the stat is, it's always got a small flaw, sometimes a giant flaw, but sometimes some great things that are done on the ice, like Ostapchuk there, doesn't even get noticed at all by the stats page.
Yeah, it is a stat that the team would track. It's a force. Like a forced turnover, inside out in the forecheck, force the guy up the wall to the short side of the ice, and then seal that lane and create that turnover, a little trap zone there on the wall, if you will, when you force the guy up there. It not dissimilar to a force when there's an interception in a football game. Somebody gets credit for a pressure. I think they call it a pressure, right? They don't call it a sack, but they call it a pressure. Same sort of thing here. There's a recognition amongst the coaching staff. And trust me, statistically speaking, the team is aware of guys that do plays like that makes things like that happen. A little force on a proper positional stick position, head position, a perfect little inside out to force a turnover. It was beautifully executed.
Yeah, no question. Where are we at here time-wise? 1922. I wanted to ask you about, because again, we're worried about the goaltending. Not worried. We're curious about the goaltending as to what'll happen in the back-to-back. But Linus Ullmark, if you have your druthers, you'd like to have him start every single game for the rest of the season and on to the playoffs. But that may not be practical. But he is in a 7-game win streak, and only 5. He's only the 5th goalie in Sens history to do that. And it's not exactly the most well-known goalies, I will say. But can you come up with the other 4 goalies who have had 7-game win streaks?
I got to believe the Hamburger is one of them.
You are correct. He had, I believe he had I think he has a 9-gamer.
Okay. And I'm thinking that one of Tugnutt and Rhodes is probably in there.
Nope.
No? Oh, well, once you said obscure.
Craig Anderson.
Craig Anderson?
Not in there.
Not in there. Yeah. See, once you seem to indicate that it was obscure, I went away from Dominic Hasek and I went away from Craig Anderson. I'm away from Patrick Lalime. I'm thinking, like, who would it be? Martin Gerber.
Yes.
There's a wild one. Yeah. Martin Gerber went on a nice little streak here for a little while. Darth Gerber, right? With his black mask. But who would the other 2 be?
The other 2 are Martin Prusek.
Oh, God. Really?
Yeah, he looked like Dominic Hasek light. He had the same sort of
tall
helmet cage combo. Yeah.
Yep.
And then the other one was Brian Elliott, who did it a couple of times.
Wow. I always think of Brian Elliott as being terrible until they traded him. But okay.
Nope, he had a couple of.
Yeah, apparently.
I think he has. I think he shares. I think he shares the record with Andrew Hammond, if I'm not mistaken. But I'll double check on that. But yeah, Brian Elliott, he did definitely had some good days, particularly from a guy out of the University of Wisconsin, who I think was I think it was back when they had went beyond the 7th round, I want to say, but he was
the last guy.
Yeah, he's very near the bottom, either the last or the second last guy, and something like 250th drafted, and so not
great trade though.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Now, as most people would know, and certainly you would, is that I've at times in Thomas Chabot's career been quite critical of Thomas Chabot. I think with the puck, when the Sens have the puck, very nice defenseman. But defensively, I see a player that does a lot of running around and gets beat a lot, and sometimes positionally a little scatterbrained. But that said, apparently I'm out to lunch as far as this season goes. And I will acquiesce to this, that I think Chabot's been very good, and I think that Nick Jensen's been a big part of that. But our pal Graham Nichols, who also writes with me at the Hockey News Ottawa, had an article this week that suggests that based on the fancy stats, your WAR, your wins against replacement and all that, he has accrued more value this season than any player in the NHL. Guys last year, for example, were Connor McDavid and Nathan McKinnon. Just in terms of your value as a player, there's nobody better than Thomas Chabot this year, which was most unexpected, and especially for someone like me who's not Thomas Chabot's biggest fan.
Well, I think Nick Jensen obviously makes a big difference, and when the injuries hit to Zub, kudos to the coaching staff for not breaking up Jensen and Chabot. You may complain about how Hamonic is dragging down Sanderson. You, as in all of you out there, may complain about that. But the alternative was to affect the pairing of Jensen and Chabot, and they have not been affected. Then you add in the play of Clevin and JBD, who also look pretty good in the statistical department. Wait till Zub gets back, and wow, you know what? There actually is a pretty good 6 here. Because let's face it, when the season started and you looked at who was there, you said to yourself, oh my God, if anybody gets hurt, we're screwed. And in a sense, really, only one pair has been affected. The team's done very well because defense, as we say many times, you especially, is about 6 guys, 5 guys and a goalie. It's not just about the 2 guys playing defense. So, yeah, Thomas Chabot in chances against, in goals against, in expected goals against, way up there in all those categories. And you add it all up, and when you take your wins above replacement, there he is, number 1. That's it. I would have said, yeah, he's high, but I never would have thought he was number 1.
Yeah. Like with all the superstars of the game, I was shocked that he was number 1. Fascinating, very fascinating stuff. But you have to tip your cap. I mean, they're all playing well right now, and
Mhm.
and even the bottom pairing D with Kleben and Bernard Docker, that was always going to be okay. They haven't played much, they're both such young players. I mean, when you think about it, with Bernard Docker, he was drafted in the first round when Brady Tkachuk was drafted, so he's not that young. But as an NHL player, he just is inexperienced. So I thought it was asking a lot of those two guys, and ideally, you'd like to have Artem Zub in this mix. But one guy in particular that I've really liked is Tyler Kleben. He seems to, with each passing week, look like a guy who's just way more comfortable with the puck, and using that big frame to protect it, to give himself that extra split second that he can, shake off a guy and make the proper outlet pass. He's never going to dazzle you offensively, but in him in particular, I've really been impressed with.
Yeah. Well, and they're young. Like, yes, JBD is older in age, but not older in career. But that's what you need. A championship team needs 5 and 6 defensemen. The guys who play sheltered minutes, they play, who they play against is carefully decided. When they go on the ice and when they skip a shift and all that stuff is very carefully determined by a coaching staff and pre-scouts and statistical analysis and all that before the game started. But they still got to play at some point. And a championship team with a 5 and 6 D, they're just those guys, steady Eddies. I put them on the ice. They're not going to allow one. They're probably not going to score one. If they do, it's a bonus. But you need those kind of guys. And 2 and 3 and 4 years from now, when this team is growing and develops and gets better and better, it wouldn't surprise me if those two guys are still there filling the 5 and 6 role.
All right, so the Senators are in Vancouver on Saturday night. They're in Edmonton on Sunday. Do you think that there's any of Travis Green that's still harboring grudges or wanting that game in particular? Travis Green did play or did coach a little bit last year in New Jersey, so I'd have to check the schedule to see if the Devils made any appearances in Vancouver after he took over for Lindy Ruff last year. But do you think there's, and we know this is his first time as a full-time head coach because he was an interim guy in Jersey. It's his first time back to Vancouver since. Does it mean anything, or you just?
I don't think so.
I know for a fact that Travis Green wouldn't spend any time talking about that because that's just not the kind of guy he is. He'd be like, nah, that's just another game for us. But do you think would it mean anything to you, for example?
I think you turn the page, right? You move on. You burning bridges isn't going to get you very far in pro sports. There's only so many jobs, only so many teams. And if you get into a feud with one, they all have friends. You got to be careful what you say and you got to understand that it's a business and all that sort of stuff. I think Travis Green would have just turned the page and moved on. Now, much the same as when he was a player. He didn't exactly play his entire career with one team. He traveled a little bit as a player too, right? He at least 4 or 5 teams. So this is a guy who's used to moving on from one place to another. And I would think he's just turned a page. Will he put some money on the board? For sure. I mean, that's only normal. That's natural in the National Hockey League that when you're playing so-and-so's X team, that guy throws some money on the board. I'm sure Travis Green will do that, but I don't think it cares. It matters to him or that he cares all that much about it. What do you think?
Yeah, I certainly don't think he'll talk about it or burn bridges.
You know that.
like you referenced. That's for sure not happening. But I still think there's, anytime you're rejected by somebody, it's different. You're right. As a player, it probably, stopped being a big issue with the number of stops that he made as a player in the league. But he hasn't been around the NHL too much as far as being a coach goes. And he was in Vancouver for quite a long time in the organization too. Like he was 2-3 years in Utica before he started in Vancouver. And so there must be a little bit of a feeling of like, I'll show you, whether he'd care to admit it or not. I know that's how I'd feel probably. And that's probably how I'd play it. I'd really like to win this one, but I wouldn't talk about it in a public setting or anything like that. But big picture, it is more about the team and keeping this thing going. Any chance you think that we're talking in our next episode about a 7-game win streak, or do you think they're going to split or maybe lose both? What's your plan?
I'd be, as I said earlier, I'd be happy with a split, or I'd be happy with 4 points. 2 overtime losses, 2 points. 2 overtime losses get you 2 points. I'd be happy with 2 points. I don't think they have it in them to take 4 points here. I just don't think they have it in them, and that might be that ask might be a little too much at this point, at this juncture in the season with this group, and that might be too big of an ask. But 2 points out of 4 would be just fine.
Absolutely. And that's a neat thing. If you go back, when we talk about the road, this is a club that if you go back throughout the course of this playoff drought, I don't think there's been any season where they've been even close to having a 500 record. As we speak right now, they have a 500 record on the road, which is a very good thing. And that's why it's nice to get those 2 first wins out of the way rather than losing them and suddenly starting to clutch again. Is, oh no, the road's getting us again. The road's getting us again. And right now the road isn't as imposing, whether it's been last change, whether it's been time changes or anything like that. It's nice to know that have that kind of mentality of we've been here before and we can do it again.
But look back at the schedule and check early in the year. I want to say they were 0-5 on the road at one point, weren't they? Or maybe 1-5. Like they did not start off
1-4,
well.
1-5,
1-4, 1-5. They did not start off well on the road at all, folks. They've come a long way, and it's the game. Their game is transferable. The game they play is transferable from rink to rink, from opponent to opponent, from night to night. The goaltender, doesn't matter which goaltender it is, doesn't matter. Their game is transferable and that's obvious when they play their game, though. You can almost make the argument that was the same issue with DJ. It was the same issue with whoever has ever coached this team. When they play their game, they look real good. The difference is that this team has played their game much more consistently, much more often, for much better, longer stretches of time than other teams have in the past couple of years. So, when they play their game, they're fine.
Yeah. They're never mentally overwhelmed anymore, which is a good thing. When you're on the road and you don't have last change and you're down a goal or two and the other team's fans are, taking the game over in terms of the noise in the building, they just don't get overwhelmed anymore. They just seem to go, okay, whether something good happened, whether something bad happened, start the machine over, do what we do, and play to your identity, all those things.
Well, it's a point that Kevin Bieksa has made more than a few times on Hockey Night in Canada. He's talked about, the Senators' best game is here, but the problem is their worst game's here. And their worst game, your bad game needs to be closer to your best game, or even your good game, right? When that delta gets too big between your good game and your bad game, that's when you're a crappy team, right? That's when you're a less than 500 hockey club. And their bad game has gotten better and better and better, so that now I'm fairly confident that most nights you're going to get a good effort and you're going to have an opportunity to win. And that's coaching, and that's players buying in. That's a commitment. It's about time.
Yeah. Travis Green talked a little bit about 3 weeks ago, we probably lose that game in Calgary, and he's probably right. Here's a bit from Travis Green talking to the media, this courtesy of the Ottawa Senators YouTube channel.
Got gritty and found a way to win.
The grittiest, perhaps from your captain?
Obviously took a nasty cut to the face, and the guy's a warrior.
Linus Ullmark, if you can offer maybe the same comment you've been making.
Another stellar game. Kept us in it. It wasn't like there was just a lot of action around him. We had a lot of block shots, spent a lot of time in our zone. Tried to keep things to the outside, and like I said, it wasn't the cleanest game that we've played in a while. We probably would have lost that game 3 weeks ago, and found a way to win tonight.
And there is Travis Green talking to the media, that courtesy of the Ottawa Senators YouTube channel, and we shall call it quits right there. Don't forget that our email address, sure, we'll give you that too. It is sensnationhockey@outlook.com. We always love to hear your feedback on the show and anything you'd like us to talk about on the program. Love to hear it. And our website is sensnationhockey.com. Encourage you to check out the hockey news page as well, all devoted to the Ottawa Senators. And that's thn.com/Ottawa. And any final thoughts, Greg, before we go? Anything?
I'm good. Looking forward to the weekend, buddy.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for being with us, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll talk to you next time.